classified document leaks. Has the president been briefed on this breach, and does the U.S. government at this point have any sense of who was behind it?
The president has been briefed. He was first briefed late last week when we all got word that there were some documents out there, and he has stayed briefed and in contact with national security officials throughout the weekend. So he has been briefed. And as for the source, as you know, the Department of Defense has referred this to the Department of Justice for a criminal investigation, and I certainly would refer you to them, but I'm not aware that they've come to any conclusions at this point about where they're coming from.
And just to follow up on that, at this point, do you believe the leak is contained? Are there more documents out there that have not been released publicly? Is this an ongoing threat?
We don't know. We truly don't.
Moving to
classified documents, I wonder if you could tell us when was the last time the protocol to grant security clearances was updated or revised in the government, and in light of the leaks, does the president believe you should take another look at that?
I think the Department of Defense has already started to take a look at distribution, for instance, at the Pentagon. I'll let them speak to that. I don't know the answer to your question on protocols for who is or who is not granted security clearances. There is already in place and remains in place a very diligent, deliberate effort to manage security clearances, and sometimes we get knocked because it takes a little too long for people's clearances to get approved because the process is so careful and deliberate. I think, to your question, I think we just need to be careful right now speculating or guessing what might be behind or who might be behind what looks like a potential leak here of classified information. So we need to let the process sort of bear itself out.
So are you saying there's a question over whether this was a leak by someone who had access to the material?
I'm saying we don't know, which is why I'm going to, I think you're getting to remedies, and I understand that. We're only a couple of days into this. We need to let the Department of Justice do their job, investigate this, see what they learn. Now, again, that said, the Department of Defense has already said that they're taking a look at distribution and looking if there's changes they need to make administratively there at the Pentagon, since it appears that they have the locus of most of the documents. But again, before we start making major muscle movements, we really need to know what we got here and have a better sense from the Justice Department.
Just a couple of quick follow-ups. Do you have a sense of the number of people who would have had access to these documents apparently prepared for the joint staff?
I do not.
Is it hundreds, thousands?
I do not. I'd refer you to the Defense Department.
And then, given this leak and previous leaks, should the American people think that the administration is losing the battle against whoever wants to steal our secrets, whether it's foreign adversaries or hackers or whomever?
I think the American people need to know and deserve to know that we're taking this very, very seriously. The president has been briefed on this. He will stay briefed on this. The Department of Defense is looking into this. They are leading an interagency effort here to review whatever national security implications might come out of all this. And the Department of Justice is leading a criminal investigation. So we're taking this very, very seriously. There is no excuse for these kinds of documents to be in the public domain. They don't deserve to be in the public domain. They deserve to be protected. So we're going to get to the bottom of this, and then if there's actions that need to be taken as we learn more about the extent of what happened here, we'll obviously take those.
Are there plans for President Biden to speak with President Zelensky over the leak, or is the White House offering any kind of reassurance to Ukrainian officials about the safety of some of their most sensitive information?
U.S. officials have been in touch with relevant allies and partners over the last couple of days at very high levels. I'll leave it at that.
And can you speak to not just the potential leak here, but what appears to be some doctoring of the information? Is this something where it's possible that there may have been a leak, but then a different actor came in, manipulated the information, and posted it online? What's the working theory in terms of the actual altering of this information?
I don't know that we've arrived at a working theory. It does appear that at least in some cases, the information posted online had been altered from what we think would be the original source. But there's just no way I can tell you with any granularity right now how that came to be. We're diving into this as strenuously as we can to try to understand that. And in keeping with your point, I mean, we urge all of you to be very careful about how you report on this story, since we know, at least in some cases, that information was doctored.
And the second question on the classified documents, has any of that leak led to a direct compromise of efforts to support Ukraine from this administration? And secondly, those who are in that business say that the biggest problem we have is that we need software and hardware upgrades to guarantee that we don't get hacked. Is there any indication that the government is going to invest in the infrastructure to make sure that you can block that in the future?
So on your first question, no. We continue to support Ukraine. That's not going to change. President's been... I'm not going to talk about the specific documents that are out there or speak to intelligence. I think you can understand why I wouldn't do that. Your question was, has there been any effect on support to Ukraine? The answer is no. We're going to continue to support Ukraine, as the president has said, for as long as it takes. On technological upgrades, again, I don't have anything to speak to today, and I don't know that even if we did, that we would talk about that in a public setting. But again, we're only a few days into this. We've got an investigation going on at Justice. We got DOD looking at their processes over there. I think we need to let those two agencies do their job, do that work.
Naomi.
Thanks. Just to follow up on the documents, is the White House concerned about the period of time that elapsed from when they were posted to when they sort of gained traction?
We're worried that these documents are out there, ma'am. They shouldn't be out there, period. That's the big worry. And in trying to figure out how that happened. And I'm sure as a part of that, the timeline will be looked at as well. But the main concern is that they're out there, period. They don't need to be, shouldn't be. Absolutely shouldn't be in the public domain.
Thanks, Frank. John,
I don't know.
On the documents, have you been contacting any of the governments mentioned in the documents to talk about it, to try to smooth things over?
As I said, U.S. officials have over the last couple of days, certainly throughout the weekend, communicated with relevant nations, relevant allies and partners, as appropriate at very high levels to communicate with them about this.
Bring this up when he speaks to the British Prime Minister later this week.
I won't get ahead of specific items on the agenda in that bilat, but we'll certainly be able to communicate with you after the fact.
Ensure that the U.S. has pretty in-depth, contemporaneous information about Russia's military operations inside of Ukraine. Has there been any impact on U.S. intelligence gathering efforts in Russia as a result of this leak? And then in terms of the impact on allies who may be concerned that the U.S. simply can't keep this kind of classified information, which is shared among allies, safe, what's the reassurance to them?
Jeremy, I won't speak to intelligence collection one way or another on any given day about any other, around any topic, so I'm just not going to go there. And as I said, U.S. officials have been in touch with relevant allies and partners, given some of these disclosures over the last few days, and we'll continue to have those conversations as appropriate.
And then quickly, it's been nearly 2 weeks now since Evan Gershkovich was arrested.
That too.
Just a quick follow. I know you've said a couple times that the administration has been in touch with allies. Does that include specifically South Korea and Israel, given the described sensitive material as pertains to those two allies?
We've been in touch with allies and partners, relevant allies and partners. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, John. I understand that you're saying some of these documents might have been altered, but is it your assessment that at least some of them are authentic?
We know that some of them have been doctored. I won't speak to the validity of all the documents, the ones that that don't immediately appear to be doctored. We're still working through the validity of all the documents that we know are out there. The Department of Defense has stood up an interagency effort to try to look at the national security implications, which includes taking a look at these documents to determine whether they're actually valid or not. And I'm just not in a position to speak to that work, which is ongoing.
You're assuming some are valid at this point.
We're saying we cannot speak to the veracity and the validity of any of those documents at this point. We're studying that. DOD is leading an effort to study that, to figure that out.
A couple more. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Kirby.
Can you lay out what the consequences will be for the people or the person responsible for the leaks of these classified information? And secondly, have you been able to gauge what their motive is just based on how they've released this information?
The answer to both questions is no, I can't. There's a Justice Department investigation going on right now, a criminal investigation. I'm certainly not going to say anything that would prejudice that, and that work is just starting. So we don't know who's behind this. We don't know what the motive is, and I can't remember who asked before, but we don't know what else might be out there. So we've got to let the Department of Defense run their process with the interagency and taking a look at the national security implications of it, and we got to let the Justice Department be able to pursue their investigation, again, completely unfettered, and let the facts and the evidence take them where they may, and we'll deal with it on the back end.
Message to them or anybody else who's considering leaking information.
This is, again, without confirming the validity of the documents, this is information that has no business in the public domain. It has no business, if you don't mind me saying, on the pages of front pages of newspapers or on television. It is not intended for public consumption, and it should not be out there. What we're going to try to do is do the best we can to figure out how this happened. And again, the Justice Department will take it from a criminal investigative procedure, and if the Defense Department has to change processes, they'll do that. But I think every American can understand, at least I would hope every American can understand, that in order to protect this country every day the way we do, one of the things that we have to protect is information. Not only the information itself, but the manner in which we glean that information. And so I think you can understand why everybody is taking this particular set of disclosures very, very seriously.